Morning, Meadowview. As you said, we had a group from Meadowview go to Cherokee this year. I want to start out by thanking our friends and family, the members of the church, for making this possible. I'd especially like to thank Mr. Snyder for loaning me his glasses so I can make reading this possible. On June 25th through July 2nd, John York, Eddie Clemmer, Corina Cullens, Ben, Shelley, Abigail, Evan, and Luke Wilson, Carrie and Sherry Show for myself, went to Cherokee on a mission trip. There were over 50 people there. There were 4 different churches there. There was Meadowview, there was a church there from Florida, from Ohio, and Tennessee. The Cherokee people are very, very leery of outsiders, so it's really hard to get in with them. There are over 6,000 Cherokee that actually live on the Qualla boundary. Well under 1,000 of them actually go to a church of some sort. We have a pastor there that we support financially by the name of Pastor Scott Hill. He's a PCA minister or missionary to the Cherokee. He has a church plant there called Grace Community Church, and we try to go there to help him out. Prior to COVID, he had a little over 30 people actually attending his church. When COVID hit, they had to find alternative means of actually worshiping in some form. When they finally came back to meet in person, there was under 12 people that returned, and there was not a single man amongst them. And that was last year. Since then, they have finally worked up to about 20 people actually coming on Sundays, but once again, there's still not a single man. Missions to the World has worked with Pastor Hill in doing his church plant. He's there to help the community by doing the church. They organize work projects, and that's where we came in. We do work projects in the community and everything, and this helps really build the relationships with the Cherokee people and gain their trust. Obviously, COVID has not helped with all of this, but they're trying to work through that also. Abigail and Corina are going to give you some of their perspective also on the trip.
Okay, so first of all, I think we both really enjoyed this trip. This was my first mission trip, and it kind of changed my perspective on missions. I went in thinking that it was pretty much just going to be our church doing like a work project or something like that. And I was still excited for it, but when we got there, turns out there was basically other youth groups there that we got to meet and made a lot of new friends while we were there. And then we got to interact with people from our church more at those specific work sites and make relationships with the Cherokee. I think one of our biggest takeaways is that missions isn't just limited to a VBS for kids, and it's not just limited to a work project at a house. It's really comes down to the interactions that you have with the people that you meet. And there's a lot of ways that we saw that as we worked throughout the week.
So we're going to share how we showed Jesus during this trip. So the first thing is we were able to teach the kids. So we held a VBS for them. And some of these kids had never heard about Jesus before. And by the end of the week, they were asking to bring home Bibles, and they were excited to read it for themselves. So that was really cool to see that. And then also, like you said, there was other youth groups. So we were able to encourage new friends and then the youth group, and then also work alongside of some of them. And also we were able to serve NTW, and they have camps coming every week. So it was cool to be a part of that. And then fixing up houses, we were able to fix a man named Calhoun's house, and that was really cool to see that. And then also hanging out with older folks at a senior center.
The other important thing about this mission trip was that we went expecting to show Jesus to others, but I personally felt Jesus shown to me in an even bigger way. So I think it was really important to see other missions and younger teens and older folks. That was encouraging to know that we weren't alone. The church that we visited on that Sunday and held a VBS at was so hospitable to us. On the last day before we left, there was some COVID that was brought by the Florida group to the camp, it put a hold on our VBS. But they wanted us to come back so they could give each and every one of us a basket with jewelry, Cherokee-made jewelry, food, Just so many encouraging, like, Cherokee souvenirs, things like that. It was extremely, extremely hospitable. We had a lot of folks have common relationships who did, like, the military and things like that, and the senior center. And then their intern at the camp, her name was Kieran, and she showed us Jesus. She was so dedicated to the Cherokee people and to Scott and Ruth Hill, who were the missionaries that are there. And she ministered to us a lot.
And one of the main things we learned, Ken did a really good job of like reminding of this, and it was shown throughout the week. The plans will change. Every day was something new. Nothing went as planned, but the Lord remained faithful in that.
All right, so I'll get a little bit more specifics. Like they said, we served at a senior center where we socialized, did crafts, and entertained, and we helped build those relationships with the older members of this community, well-respected people go there. Of course, this helps with getting in good with the community to help out Scott Hill and his church. We worked on Clement Calhoun's house. He was a man that had 100 chickens, 50 cats, and a 250-pound hog walking around, so it was quite entertaining to see that. Anyways, he was a guy that always helped in the community, but he never asked for help himself, so it was neat to get to know him in that respect. One of the biggest things we helped out with was a VBS. We helped at Aquani Missionary Baptist Church, and one of the most significant things about that, like I said, there's not a lot of Christians in the community, so a lot of the churches are not well attended, but we helped Aquani Missionary Baptist Church, and they actually asked Presbyterians to help teach some of their schools, some of their classes. Shelley and Ben Wilson got to help out with teaching that. So it kind of shows you the lack of actual Christians in the area. However, the work that we do, the mission trips, is really not about the work that we do. It's not about putting up a soffit on the house. It's about being a light in the community. It's spreading God's word. It's showing Jesus' love to everyone. It's the ability to tell Bible stories to children who have never heard the Bible stories. It's the giving the gift of fixing a house for Mr. Calhoun, who is a person that is wallowing in his own misery from his wife and son passing away 2 years ago and are buried 200 feet from his house, so he sees it every day. It's about getting to know Roy, who likes 2 drops of Texas Pete in his coffee. It's about Shelley and Sherry forming a relationship with their counterparts at Aquani. That would be Miss Nancy and Mrs. Rock. It was enjoying the fellowship and encouragement of the few other Christians from a completely different culture. It was about not letting Carrie worry when he slept after I saw a bug go across his sheets. It was giving out of Bibles to children who never heard the Bible stories and them begging for Bibles to take home. It was about a teen who was deathly allergic to bee stings and getting stung by a bee and having people there to help him. It was about God holding in his hand a teen with severe anxiety. It was about actually seeing how Satan is trying to fight against God's will. It was about seeing small glimpses of a 9-year-old girl return to being a child after seeing her most of the time filled with worry, fear, hate, and rebellion in her eyes when you just knew part of her childhood was missing. It was about about members of this church growing in God's grace and searching for God's will in their lives. Pastor Scott Hill needs your continued prayers and support. As some of you know, he suffered a stroke last year, so it has made his mission work a little bit more difficult. So please be in prayer for the Hills and their mission to the Cherokee. They have a lot of hard decisions to be made this year. Also be in prayers for the members of this church, to include yourselves, to have open hearts and to heed God's calling to do his will, wherever that may be, and then to take steps of faith to do it. Once again, I'd like to thank every single one here for your time and effort and your prayers and support for the 2022 Cherokee Mission Team. Thank you.